This video is brought to you by Skillshare. First of all, I want you guys to enjoy the behind the scenes and see how I captured some of these images that I will be going through.
Teach me to fly, I won't be coming down. Could somebody wake me up? I don't wanna be here and let the world pass me by. Yeah, I just see her face wherever I look. She's standing in the crowd. So let go, I don't want to, but I'm gonna try. When she left me, yeah, let a little bit inside. You know, maybe things are gonna be alright. Cause I just wanna see the light. I'm so sick of waiting and getting too restless to be in this dusty town. I've heard of this place where people forget and you get another try. So come open up my door.
I just want us to have certain things at the back of our minds, because I've noticed that when it comes to retouching, a lot of people think that it's just about cleaning up someone's skin, polishing it and making it look as porcelain as possible. But I want us to just take a few steps back and understand the fundamentals of that and see if we can apply the definition of retouching to this image and see if we can just make it look a whole lot better. And by definition, it says that to improve or repair a painting, photograph in our case, or other image by making slight additions or alterations. So you're just making slight additions or alterations. You're not necessarily completely changing the way a person looks, unless that's like the stylistic approach that you're going with. If I go on further, it also says photo retouching means the elimination of all the imperfections from a photo, which usually includes color and tone correction. And you see, they are starting with color and tone correction before even going on to blemishes and under eye circles removal. Just let you know that your camera colors are also not always the way you want them to be, and color grading is very subjective, and so it's up to you, the artist creating or painting the image with light, to figure out the tone and the color that you want to work with. And afterwards, it also goes to talk about changing of brightness, contrast and saturation, and all of these things, like I said before, are subjective. But when it comes to blemish removal and all those things, is also again up to you or what your client requires. If you are your own client, if you're shooting for yourself, then you can determine how far you want to push those alterations, right? Okay, so now moving back onto capture one, where we're going to start with our raw processing. This is the image that came straight out of my Canon R5. The settings are down below. You can see that it is a CR3 file. Nothing or no adjustments has been done onto it, but capture one in itself applies some default adjustments to your raw input. So for example, if I go into the base characteristics, you see that it's set it to EOS R5 generic, and that adds a bit of a change. If I zoom into the image so that you can see what that does and bring it to her face, I don't know if you'd notice this, but if I just click on or hover over Pro Standard, do you see that little shift in the color? It's a little bit reddish in generic, but when I go into Pro Standard, it goes a little bit more towards green. Usually I like to keep it at Pro Standard, but for what I'm doing today, I want to eliminate a lot of the greens, so I'll just keep it as generic. Now, I said in the beginning that we need to have a plan. So I know that the image is going to end up on Instagram. That's the first decision I'm going to take. And so what I'm going to do is set my crop to Instagram profile ratio, which is 4:5. If you don't see the ratios, when you click and hold in capture one, there are so many ratios here that you can choose from, and I'm choosing 4:5. After I do that, what I want to fix next is the composition. Do I want to have a lot of the bottom frame, or do I want to move it up and have a little less and have more of the sky? But I feel in this case there isn't really a lot of interesting things going on in the top part of the frame, and because I was shooting with with the 50 and I was a little bit far from here, I know that I captured a lot of space, but then I knew that I'm also going to be cropping down, and because I'm using a Canon R5, which is a 45 megapixel camera, I can still crop and I wouldn't really lose a lot of detail. So these are things that you need to consider. So your camera megapixels, the lens you're shooting with, your final composition, all those things are going to influence the way the final image is going to look like. All right, so now that I've defined my crop, I can just reposition it. And I think I want to keep it somewhere here. Maybe just bring it down a tiny bit, just like that. And when I hit enter, it's going to apply the crop. This is just the first part. Now I know that she looks underexposed, and there's a reason for that. I wanted to retain a little bit of information in the sky, but right now when I even pull my highlights down, you notice that we don't really have a lot of detail to play with. Even if I bring my exposure down, it's still giving me this gray sky. I thought maybe in post I'll be able to pull it back, but on that day we didn't have clouds in the sky anyway. I just thought maybe we can pull some color in post, and I was trying to save that by underexposing but clearly it's not going to happen. So I have to live with the fact that I have to keep a bright overexposed background, and that is also going to influence some of the decisions I'm going to take when I'm moving these sliders around. So first things first, I feel like the image is a little bit too cold for my liking. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase my Kelvin up a little bit. I think I want to move it into the 6000s just so I can warm up the image a little bit. So maybe somewhere around, I think somewhere around here looks good. And then also, because like I said, you can see that the water is green or has a green tint to it, I want to eliminate that. So I'm just going to use my tint. If I move it all the way to the left, you can see that it's adding more green. Move it to the right, it's adding magenta. But I just want to increase that color a little bit so that when I'm getting rid of it later on with other sliders, I will be able to do that easily. So maybe somewhere around here I think should look good. Now this is where we're going to make some of the other adjustments. So for example, I need to increase my exposure just a little bit, like so. Maybe about half a stop should do. Yeah, I think I like the way it is, and you can see already we've made a huge change. If I click on the before and after, you can see just by changing the color temperature and the exposure, we've been able to get like a really nice looking image. This can even pass for like a finished image, right? But no, there's so many things that we're going to do to this image. So after that, I'm just going to add a little bit of contrast, just a little bit of that, and I'm also going to saturation, and I'm also going to bump up the color just a tiny bit. Afterwards, I feel like I want to increase my highlights just because I want this image to look really bright, somewhere like that. Because like I said, there's nothing to retain in the sky, so I might as well just let it go, right? I'm going to go down into shadow and then just bring shadow down a little bit so we can keep a bit of that contrast in her skin. Then I'm going to go into the whites and we're just going to brighten that up. Because again, like I said, if the sky doesn't have any information, we might as well just let it go. Right, so maybe somewhere around here looks good. And Capture One adds some sharpening. I'm just going to take that sharpening all the way down. I feel this is where I want to be starting this image from, and then we can move it into Photoshop and then finalize the plan and see what we're going to do to enhance the image, right? So we're just going to right click and go to edit with and choose Photoshop. So now this is going to load inside Photoshop as a TIFF file, and then we can start post-processing from there. Now that we have our image open inside Photoshop, let me create a blank layer on top of that. Set B for my brush tool, and then maybe let me choose red, and then let's figure out the things that we want to do to enhance our image. First of all, let me inspect my subject. I'm zooming in all the way, and I can tell that her blemishes are not really visible, so it's something that I don't really need to spend a lot of time. But when I zoomed in, I noticed that her eyes have like this green cast. So her eyes and even her teeth have the green cast, and I'm also noticing around her arm over here, over there, it's also catching that green cast. And I even think it's possible that it's affecting the colors in here as well. When we start adjusting it, we will know for sure, but I feel this wasn't the color that I saw during the day that we were shooting. So obviously it means that these colors, I think it was more towards like an orange tone, as you can see down here, right? Okay, then again, I also feel like I don't like the color of the water itself, so that is going to be something that I may have to shift around so it complements the orange that we have. And you know, teal and orange or blue, like a cool color and a warm color often goes like quite well together. So I'm sure we're going to be shifting the color of the water towards blue, or maybe just desaturate the green. I don't know yet. I also feel like these elements are distracting, and if we only had the rails behind here, that may just make the image look a lot cleaner. I know this video is going to be a little bit long, but bear with me. It's just because we have a lot of things to cover, and we're just going to end up spicing up the image. All right, so this is our plan. So our plan is to get rid of these unwanted elements in the frame, fix a little bit of the color issues, and then also I noticed that because of my shooting angle, her muscles are looking a little bit wonky in the video. I know that is not how it looks like in real life, so I'm actually just going to use a Liquify tool to fix a little bit of that. That's the only thing that we'll be doing. And then we'll just fix a little bit of her blemishes, smoothing out the skin just a little bit, even though it's not really important in this case. We'll just do that with my actions. So again, if you don't have my actions, link is down below, check it out. That's what we're going to be using to edit this image. So let me just rename this layer and call it plan, and then we'll hide it because we don't need it for now. First things first, let's just try and get rid of all these unwanted elements. I feel that is going to be the most tasking thing that we have to do inside Photoshop, but Photoshop is a little bit smart, and so I'm sure it's going to make this a little bit easy for us. The first thing I'll do is select my lasso tool, and what I want to do is just draw around the area that I want to fix. And note that I'm on the background layer. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to come down to content aware fill, and Photoshop should highlight the area that it's going to sample from and then try and fix it. It's not perfect, but at least it's gotten rid of this chair that is in the background and looking distracting. I'm gonna say okay to that so it applies it. It's not perfect, we're gonna fix it, but hold on, bear with me. All right, you can see that I also created that on a blank layer. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to make a copy of my background layer just so I don't work directly on the background layer. I should have done that early on, but I mean, it's not too late, I can still do it. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to draw around, but before I do that, I want to merge the background copy down so that it's tied to the background copy too. All right, so back to my lasso tool, I'll just draw around the chair like so. Go back to edit, come down to content aware fill, and let it again decide on the area that it wants to sample from. I want to paint out the water, so it's not sampling from the water. And you see when I did that, it fixed this area. It's still not perfect, but at least it's gotten rid of that huge chair, and that's fine for now. So I'm just going to press OK, and we're going to apply it. I'm also going to merge this down so we know that this is what we have left and this is what we need to fix, and then we would have completely gotten rid of those imperfections that we saw. So what I'm going to do actually is just again use my lasso tool on the background layer, and I'm just going to make a copy of this because this doesn't have any distracting elements. I'm going to hit Command J and hit Command T, and now I'm just going to move it to the side, just probably align it somewhere here like so. Hit enter, and now we have applied that copy. It's not perfect, we're going to fix it. I'm going to add a layer mask, hit B for my brush tool, and then I'm going to make it really soft and then just blend it in by painting black on the layer mask over this area. Now you can see it has blended in pretty nicely. Okay, I'm going to hit Command E to merge it down one more time. And then now I'm going to just use a blank layer with my brush, or actually let me start with the clone stamp tool, and I'm just going to clone this area right here. I'll actually even start from here. I'm going to clone this area and then just try and match it over here like this and go up. Now I can clone from this area and then just paint down, clone, and then paint down. I'm also going to go up and then just paint this down like so. I'm now going to change it to my regular brush and then just use a brush to finalize it with a very low flow. Okay. And just like that, we've been able to fix this area, and it looks really good in just a few steps. Now we're moving on to the right hand side, and we're going to try and do the same thing. Now I'm just going to sample over here and create a new layer as well sample right there, and then just paint it all the way to the end. Again, it doesn't have to be extremely perfect. We're going to use our brush tool to finalize that. So I'm just using the clone stamp tool for now, and I'm just painting over. Likely because of how out of focus it is, it's not going to be very obvious that we've made like so many changes to that. Already you can see that we've gotten rid of it and it looks really good. Now we just need to fix the rail right here. So what I'm going to do in this case is, again, just go to S for clone stamp tool. I'm going to sample right here because that doesn't have any issue. I'm going to come down and then just paint that in like so. Sample again, come down. Let me create a new layer for this. Come down and paint that up. The reason why I created a new layer is because I can easily just erase this bottom part and then we're done. It doesn't really need to look perfect. I think this is okay. It's way better than where we started from. I'm gonna hit Shift, come down to background copy, hit Command E, and now we've merged everything down. So this basically has us removing the chair from the scene. And I think I can even actually just paint out some of these things. So let me just go create a layer mask, hit B for my brush tool, and then I'll just paint with black over here. And now I've gotten rid of that. I think I might as well just sample and then straighten this just a little bit. And I'm going to use my brush tool with a soft brush and a very low flow, and I'm just going to blend this area in. Just like that. Now zooming out, it looks really good. You wouldn't be able to tell that there were some distracting elements in the background in the first place. Okay, so now that we have been able to do all of these, I just want to again create a stamp visible of everything we've done and merge it down just like that. So here's a before, after, before, after. It's looking really, really good. All right, so moving on, what I want to fix now, I just need to liquify the image right now and then get the shape to look a little bit better. Filter, come down to liquify, and now we're just going to shift her muscles around. Again, like I said, it's just because of my shooting angle and I know the way she looks that the camera did add a bit of distortion, and I'm just using the liquify tool to fix that. All right, so just going to move this in a tiny bit, bring this out, and I'm just making tiny adjustments. You don't need to be heavy-handed with this, otherwise it's going to be obvious that you've done something like that. I always see certain images that there's been Liquify applied and you can tell immediately that Liquify has been applied. You really need to be very careful when you're using this tool.
I wanna be weightless. Teach me to fly, I won't be coming down.
Alright, even just bring your hairline down a little bit. Right, so here's a before, after. You can see we didn't really make a lot of changes, but it's been able to, you know, just spice up the image. Just a few alterations and it's looking really good. Alright, now that we have this out of the way, now the next thing I want to do is just remove some of the blemishes on her face and just around the image. I'm going to create a new blank layer, and I'm just going to hit J and then select the spot healing brush. I'm just going to sample and then just paint over the blemishes that I want to get rid of. Also make the brush very close in size to the blemish that I want to get rid of.
I'm so sick of waiting and getting too restless to be in this dusty town. I've heard of this place.
Now that I'm done with all of the healing, before we proceed, I just want to quickly tell you guys about Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creatives and creators like us. Part of my plan for the year is to work towards my future. Save money, save for my future, but overall, just be smart about money. The first place I decided to search was Skillshare, and that's because I have a membership. And when I typed in finance, I had over 1,200 results. And you know, I have already taken a class by Justin Bridges, and his video is about modern money habits, 5 steps to build the life you want. But because I have a membership, like I mentioned earlier on, I could also take other classes. For example, I'm also currently on the freelancing guide, Managing Your Finances by Faye Brown or Faye Brown Designs. It's an amazing class that teaches you about finding work, pricing, invoicing, and more importantly, keeping track of your accounts. We're artists, not accountants, so yes, we can hire accountants to handle that for us. But if we are now starting out, there are a few things that we can do to simply keep track of our income and expenses, and this class is very, very helpful. I think you should really take this class because there's a lot you learn, but don't take my word for it. Use your 1 month free access to do your own research. So if you're interested in joining Skillshare and becoming a member, then head on into my description box and use my special link, because the first 1,000 of you, my friends, who click on the link get an amazing 1 month free trial of Skillshare. It's that simple. Click the link in my description and you can now use the 1 month free access to check out the video I mentioned. And whilst you're there, you can also search for other classes about photography, creative writing, marketing, and productivity. Thank you, Skillshare, for making this possible. All right, so now that we've been able to get rid of all these little imperfections and fixing the image overall, the next thing I want to do is just run my frequency separation action just so we can smoothing out some of the transitions. All right, so I'm just gonna go here, run my 16 bits. Again, if you don't have my workflow actions, link is down below. It will take you to my digital store and then you can check it out. You can purchase the workflow actions, and also there are a ton of color grading LUTs and melanin skin tone LUTs and freebies on there. Just play around on my website and then I'm sure you're gonna find something that you would love and purchase to support the channel. I'm gonna choose a very low radius because I don't want to be heavy-handed with my frequency separation. Wait for it to run, and I'm also going to turn on the helper just so I can see exactly where the tonal inconsistencies are, and then I'm just going to paint with a mixer brush and I'm just going to smoothing out the transitions. Again, I'm not going to be too heavy-handed because this image is almost like a full body image and it's also not filling the frame entirely, so I don't need to be very, very precise while I was doing this. I can't get away with some of these things. Plus the aim is just to, you know, give the entire image like a little boost. It's not supposed to make it look entirely different. All right, so just the things that immediately stand out to me that bug me is what I'm going to be fixing with the frequency separation. Okay, now I'm happy with the frequency separation that I did. It's been able to smoothing out the image a little bit. I'm just going to bring the opacity down, go down into FS Helper, delete that because I don't need it. And I'm going to run my dodge and burn. I'm just going to play that, and now we're just going to dodge and burn the image. I think I ran it twice, so just one is fine. Open it up, and now we can start dodging. Again, I'm not going to be very, very precise with this. I'm just going to, you know, paint the things that immediately stand out to me. Remember, when you're painting on a layer mask, black is to hide, white is to reveal. So now that the layer mask is set to black, I'm painting it with white so that we can reveal the dodging or the brightening of the areas that my brush is going over with the white strokes.
I just wanna see the light. I just wanna see the light. Cause I just wanna see the light.
Alright, so adding this little bit of dodge and burn just enhances the image and makes it look really good. I'm just gonna go into burn and then just burn certain areas down.
I'm fed up with changes. Come pick me up cause I just wanna see the light. I wanna be weightless. Teach me to fly, I won't be coming down.
Okay, looking good. So here's a before, after, before, after. I really like the way it's looking. Now we need to fix the colors. After dodge and burn, I feel like what I want to do to enhance the image now is just to fix the colors and get it to like a place that I really like. So the first thing is, remember in the plan I said that we're having like some casts and stuff. Those are the things I want to fix right now. So I'm gonna start off with a hue saturation layer. And what I'm going to do here is just click and sample on this area. It's telling me that it's the yellows that is sampling, but in order to be able to visualize, because I can see that over here has a green cast, over here there's a green cast, a little bit in her face as well, but I want to be able to visually see that I'm selecting those colors, right? So after you use your picker to highlight the area you want to select, you can just up your saturation all the way, and now you can see that it didn't just select the area that I clicked on, it selected a broader area. And the way you can get around this, or to narrow down the selection, is by using these sliders, just to narrow it down and be more precise with your selection. So I'm going to move this around. You can see that now it's beginning to select the areas I mentioned. You can see her eyebrows, her arm is also being selected. It means that those have that color cast, and that is exactly what I want to select. So somewhere around here I think should do the trick. Go back to 0 on saturation, and now I can move the color towards red, and you can see that doing that is shifting the color and everything is being blended very, very well. I'm also going to up the saturation just a little bit and also just make it a tiny bit brighter, just like that. If I do it before and after, you can see that we've fixed a little of the issue, and automatically also fixed the colors in her swimwear. I think this color actually looks good, so I'm going to leave it like that. Zooming out, this is what we have. Now the next thing I want to do is just fix the color of the water. We're going to use the same hue saturation adjustment that we did. I'm going to click on this little icon so that I can select the color of the water. It's telling me that it's in green, but again, I want to be sure of the area I'm selecting, so I'm going to move my saturation all the way up. You can see it's not selected the entire water, so what I'm going to do is just expand it like so. Even if it's selected a bit of her skin, I don't mind, because I know that it's created a mask and I can paint with black to hide the effect on her skin. Alright, so move this, open that up for a little bit more, somewhere like so, and I'm going to change the saturation back to 0. Now I can move the hue wherever I want, so more towards this range, and then desaturate it just like that. Also maybe just darken it, actually just brighten it a little bit, and desaturate it some more. Move the color towards a cyan color. I think this is looking pretty good. Now I want to paint it out of her skin just in case it's getting in there, so I'm going to paint with black and with a higher flow this time, and then just paint it out of where my subject is. Just like that. So here's a before, after, before, after. I really like where we are now in the image, and now what we can do is just finalize the color tone, or the grading of the image, and I think we will be done. So I'm going to go into my actions actually and go into color grade and press play. Now it's created a new folder for us here called color grade, and this is where I can play with the adjustments to give me the color that I want. It says color lookup. This is for my LUTs, but because she's not dark skin, I'm not going to be using my melanin LUTs in this case. I'll start with color balance, and now we can play with the midtones. So now we can decide which direction we want to move the midtones, and I think moving it towards a reddish color is good. So I'm just going to go into blues and pull the blues out as well, just to make the skin a little bit more orange and complement the water a little bit better. I think I'm just going to take out a bit of green. I'll go into shadows, and maybe just add a bit of blue into the shadows, and add a bit of green, and then over here in the shadows just going to add a bit of red. So here's a before, after. It's just a very subtle change, but I like it. I'm going to go into the highlights, and as you can tell, majority of the image is in the highlights. So if I move it into the yellows, you can see that it's affecting the sky, the background, and everywhere, and I think I like it, but I'm not just going to make the effects very strong. So maybe -4, -5. Also add just a little bit of green, so let's say +2, and then I'll just add maybe +1 on red. So here's before and after. You can see that we've warmed up the image. It's looking really bright, and I like it. I'm going to go into hue saturation, and let's just see what we can play with. So I'm going to go into greens, again just targeting the water just a little bit, and just move that more towards cyan, desaturate it some more, and just darken it a little bit this time. I'll go into cyans because I'm suspecting there's going to be a bit of cyan in the water. Also desaturate it, darken it, and move that again more towards blue. Now I'm going to go down into blues itself, desaturate that, darken it a little bit, and also still move the blues more towards blue. Awesome. Now I'm going to go into selective color. You don't need to use all of these layers. I'm just showing you how I typically would be color grading my images. Starting off with the reds, which is going to be predominantly in his skin and the outfit. I think I just want to add just a bit of cyan, go into magenta, and just add a bit of magenta to that. Also with the yellows, I think I may want to pull down the yellows just a little bit and also make it just a tiny bit brighter. So in the blacks, I'm just pulling it down a little bit. I'll go into the yellows and maybe do the same thing. I think coming down on the cyan and also coming down on magenta. Then inside the yellows, I think I'm also going to come down on the yellows a little bit. And for the blacks, again, I'm also just going to brighten that a little bit like so. So this is all I've done inside color grade. Here's a before, here's an after. You can see that the colors look more subtle, muted, but everything is working together very, very well. So here's a before and after. I'm not fully done yet. I just want to create a vibrance and then just bring the vibrance up a tiny bit. Also just bring saturation up ever so slightly. Perfect. And now I just want to add a bit of noise. You can see that in here eyes, I was saying that we were supposed to take out the colors, but because we took out the greens and the yellows, it's done that in the eyes. I almost forgot about it, but it's good I just remembered. And so what I'm going to do is just create a hue saturation, and I'm just going to use the target tool again. Click in there, it says there's yellow. I'll desaturate the yellows, and I will just go into reds as well, desaturate it, brighten it, go back into the yellows, brighten it a little bit. And because it came with a mask as well, I can now invert, hit Command I to invert it, press B for my brush tool, and make sure I'm painting with white, and I'm only going to paint inside of the eyes, and that should take away that color cast. Just like that. Paint over your teeth as well. And this should do it. I'm just going to reduce opacity a little bit so it looks a little bit more believable. Somewhere here I think looks good. And now I think we have an amazing looking image. What I'm going to do to finalize this is just run my sharpen action so I can sharpen the image a little bit. I'll define the radius. I think somewhere like that looks good. Just want to really sharpen the details. Press OK, and it's going to do the rest. All I need to do now is just invert the layer mask, and it should apply like a general sharpening, which isn't too bad. I'll just reduce the opacity to about 50%. Now I'm going to go into film grain, or actually let me just use noise and then just add a little bit of noise to the image. Press OK, and that's it. I think we're done with the image. You can see that it's added a bit of noise. Here's a before, here's after. Actually, I think it's too strong, so I'm bringing it down to 9%. So this pretty much sums up our editing. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Let me know how you feel about the image in the comments down below, and if you learned a thing or two. So here's our before, here's our after.
I don't want to, but I'm gonna try. When she left me, yeah, died a little bit inside. You know, maybe things are gonna be alright.